Okay, I will call the meeting to order at 7:03, the Inland Wetland Watercourse Commission. Shannon, I don't have an agenda in front of me, so you may have to help
Of course.
walk us through it. Normally we do a roll call to start, is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So we'll go ahead with that. Rich Berlandi.
Here.
Emily Brick. And we haven't seen Emily on. Dave Fox.
Here.
Bob Hannon. We are not seeing Mr. Hannon this evening. Robert Eisner.
Here.
Mark Simpson. And I'm not seeing Mark on. And Ned Stachin. Ned?
Ned.
Unmute. Sorry, please.
Unmuted Ned is here too.
Thank you. And Jay Tulin.
I'm here. Thank
Perfect. Okay, and Mr. Eisner, we are starting with the Newport Realty Group LLC 8677 Plainville Ave is at the top of the agenda.
Shannon and Attorney Hoeb, do you want to start the comment for the applicant?
I can see.
Do we have to unmute him?
Yeah, I know Chris said he'd called in, but I'm not seeing him on. So maybe, I know Andrew. Andrew, do you want to get started for the application? I know Andrew Quirk is on.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I did speak with Chris before, but I'm happy to start. Just for the record, Andrew Quirk, professional engineer and principal with Kratzer Jones and Associates. Again, here for Newport Realty and the Willowbrook Estates application. After our last meeting, we updated the plans with information and tried to address, I think there were a few items that we wanted to try to address that were outstanding with the commission. First, probably on sheet 3, Shannon, if you're able to switch to sheet 3 of the set of 22. We did do an enlarged plan with some details for the sewer crossing. Previously, the plans were 40 scale for the crossing. This is a 10 scale plan that shows the details of the crossing and the easement. And then much of this is also duplicated on page 11, which shows the plan and profile of the same crossing on showing the depth and the flow line, the silt socks through the crossing is all shown on page 11. If that's.
Yeah, I didn't know how much you wanted to bounce around. I can.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I can certainly go there. It just, so there's the same. There's the crossing and the sewer line. And then the profile below, which Mr. Sear in our office has reviewed.
We did do also a tree survey in that area right along the property line. It's outside the easement, but there's a lot of details for each of the individual hemlocks that make up the hemlock row. Those are indicated and shown. They are on the subject property for the easement. And then there is one tree just to the south that is on the abutting property, just so that there's clarification of the trees. They all do fall outside of the 20-foot wide sewer construction easement. Also, we provided more details for the grading. Sheet 9 of 22 probably would be the best for that. The grading adjacent to the wetlands near unit 44. This also showed up in the comments that I'll also touch on after. We're having some additional silt socks in the area of units 44 and the detention basin, which are a little bit further to the south. But all of that shows the grading within the upland review area for which we're seeking the permit, as identified before, the 0.7 acres of upland review area disturbance. And then the final note I wanted to touch on was we added a sheet to the set, sheet 5 of 22, specifically for the open space areas and concepts that we're proposing. There's a couple different open space areas and different goals of the different open spaces as we are looking towards the zoning regulations and then also your wetland regulations. So some of these areas may not directly relate to wetlands, but we did want to try to incorporate all that together. So specific for the wetlands in the far northeast corner, the entire gray shaded area there from the sewer easement covering 100 feet, 100 feet from the wetland line. So I thought that might be the easiest way to define the limit is to define a distance off the wetlands. You can see with the tree clearing limit in all cases, that's beyond the 100 feet. But rather than having a varied distance between what is going to be allocated in the easement and the tree clearing, I thought a simple number of 100 feet from the wetlands would be a clean definition. But there are areas beyond that that are also not going to be disturbed. But that totals 5.1 acres. And that includes all 2.0 acres of wetlands that are on the site. And that would be held by the Homeowners Association, Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. That'll be a staff. And protected. In addition to the 5.1 acres to the along the north property line, there's 1.1 acres that is shown. Some of this is zoning required buffering. So I did not put a conservation easement on this, but we're certainly open to that as well. It's also quite a distance from the wetlands. But there's an additional 1.1 acres there that will be held by the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. So of the 13 acres in Farmington, 6.2 acres would be held by the Homeowners Association as open space. In addition to that, as part of the application, there are several areas in Plainville. Again, it's maybe beyond the purview, but just to look at the project as a whole, the Plainville requirements do not allow you to count open space in the required setbacks. So this is area beyond the required zoning setbacks. So there's the setback areas have to be provided, and then you have to provide open space in addition to that. So there's a 15-foot strip along the southerly property line that's not included as part of this open space, but is a preserved buffer line along the entire southerly property line. Same for along Unionville Avenue. There's a setback line that's not included in this. But in addition to the setbacks, there's a total of 2.6 acres of open space in Plainville. So between the two towns, there's a total of 8.8 acres that would be held by the Homeowners Association, or roughly 34% of the property held by the Homeowners Association as open space. Also on this map, we called out the Brownstone Crossing, the perimeter trail system that creates the 1 mile loop between the nature trail, the stone dust trail, the sidewalk system. And we've been working with the owner to try to develop some kind of placard to recognize the family and having the trail named the Keller Family Trail and having that remembered in that way for the trail system. Those were the items I had noted from the last meeting. We also did receive review comments from the submission that we did from Bruce Sear. I have reviewed those, and the applicant is more than willing to agree to those 8 conditions of the review. In general, they're more technical in nature, I would say. details in terms of the depth of the sump and hooded outlets on the catch basins, some additional areas for the silt socks in addition to the silt fence, and some other items as part of that 8 that we certainly agree to address as conditions if that's appropriate. At this point, I would be happy to try to take any questions.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a quick comment
Yes,
with
please.
respect to the conservation easement. So the conservation easement, as it's shown, is a direct offset of the wetland line. So you can see, like we have for the upland review, when you offset at a point, you end up with an arc. It's that radius through the wetland. Because the easement gets recorded as a meets and bounds description, we would, from a staff standpoint, it would be easier if we straight lined through these on the chords. And so at some points it might be 105 feet, at some points it might be 95 feet. But from a meets and bounds standpoint and getting it recorded and being able to identify it and locate it in the field, we find that it's a little more straightforward than having to deal with all of the arcs that come into play when you do a direct offset in this manner. So that would be the only, I think, difference. And then obviously the silt fence, the silt fence and silt sock along this entire perimeter that abuts the wetland area. But Mr. Sear and I went through the plans and as detailed as we could between yesterday and today, and feel that these comments are the ones that are wetland related. That was just issued this evening. So that's, I know I sent it at the end of the day, and I certainly recognize that you folks have day jobs, but this is the memo that came out at the end of the day in review of this updated plan set. So that's obviously, this does not eliminate all the other comments, but many of the wetland related comments and some of the drainage concerns were alleviated, not necessarily completely resolved, but certainly alleviated. And staff does feel that these can be resolved as conditions of approval should the commission agree to that. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, present this evening is Tony Valenti, who's a principal of the applicant. And Mr. Valenti, you have no objection to the rounding of the conservation easement for purposes of ease and description, do you? Can you hear me, Mr. Valenti?
He's muted.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Chris and Andrew, as long as you don't see any kind of problem with that in terms of the description and the meets and bounds, I'm fine with it as well.
I don't. I can probably make it an easier description. I'm not sure when I sit down and do it, or whoever does it. It might be ease, but I don't think you're certainly giving up anything. And you're, of course, agreeable to all the conditions interposed by staff. That's correct?
We are, yeah.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we don't really have anything further. Mrs. Rutherford, I don't know if you have something other than we owe a great deal of thanks to staff because they've worked tremendously hard again. And like all boards and commissions, as I said previously, they're overwhelmed. So we got a really thorough review. We're glad there was a pause 2 weeks ago, allowing us to revise the plans, come back before you, so that you have a comfort level of what we're doing. And it gave everyone an opportunity to have a fuller and better understanding of the application. So again, I'd like to take a moment to thank staff for their assistance.
Thank you, Attorney. Go ahead.
and Mr. Chair, that's all I had with respect to comments to share with the commission.
Thank you, Shannon. So then I'll go around and check with the commissioners to see if there are any questions or comments, and we'll start alphabetically with Emily.
And Emily is not here this evening, so we can go to Rich.
Rich, any questions or comments?
No, I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay, moving on to Dave.
Oh yeah, just a couple of quick questions. I was looking at the phasing and the sewer crossing from Laurel Lane is in phase 2. I'm guessing that phase 1 and phase 2 will be close enough together that the houses in phase 1 will be able to hook up to the sewer.
Phase 1 goes.
If I may, excellent question. What we did was break out phase 1 as the first 14 homes off of Unionville Avenue that can be served by the Plainville sewer system. And so we can build those independently connecting to the sewer system on Unionville Avenue. And that will allow for time to construct the utilities out to the east to Farmington. And that construction can, and that house construction can happen independent of that. So it is actually phase 2 where we make the connection to Laurel Lane.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. And another comment on the same the crossing from the cul-de-sac. We had discussed last time minimizing the time that trench is open where it crosses the wetland and the outlet of the stormwater pipe. I think it would be good to have a note somewhere on these plans that should not remain an open trench for very long. I don't know exactly how to word it, but somehow memorialize that concept.
I agree. I know we discussed that, and certainly we're agreeable to that as a condition. My thought on that construction was that it could be done separately and capped so that we're not waiting for the manhole construction and the like, which takes quite a bit longer to mortar the inverts and construct the different segments of the manholes themselves. But the sewer pipe itself could be constructed, capped, and the area stabilized while just to minimize the time of exposure for that at the wetland crossing. And that sewer crossing is quite shallow at that location. I think we have right at 3.5 feet of cover, which is usually the minimum cover to ensure pipe stability and frost cover. So given that it's that shallow, we could construct that section and get that stabilized quickly, and would be open to that as a condition of approval.
That would be great to have that somehow written down in these plans. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Simpson?
Mark has not joined us this evening.
I've got to take better notes. We'll move on to Commissioner Stanton.
Yeah, thank you. On the main sediment pool, is that center area, is that supposed to be like I think you call it a micro pool? So how is that? Does that only fill if you get a large storm and the whole basin fills, and then as it retracts, you'll have the outlet basins, or and then this micro pool? Is that, I'm not really sure what the purpose of the micro pool is.
Yeah, what we try to do on the stormwater basin is create different areas for water quality treatment. So the different areas within that stormwater basin serve different water quality treatment functions. The sort of old school simple detention basins with a flat bottom and no controls, although they work well for detention, they don't do much in terms of water quality treatment. So the treatment system we have here with the stormwater basin is on the left side, the water comes in from the flared end from the outfall from the storm system. And then we have this riprap filter berm, which is sort of like a mini dam, if you will. And it allows water to pass through it. But the idea is to, in addition to the plunge pool that's there to control erosion, is to slow the water, trap any large sediment and debris right at that location, a location that can be easily accessed and cleaned rather than throughout the entire basin, and collect it there. Then as the water then passes through that riprap filter berm, the area that you were describing in the center of the stormwater basin is the micro pool, and that is purposely positioned in a way that the flow can't pass through the basin without passing through that micro pool. And that would at times have standing water. There's specific plantings that can withstand having wet feet, if you will, and being submerged in certain times. That area is 2 feet lower than the remainder of the basin. And so as the water passes through there, when you have stormwater passing through water that has had the ability to drop out sediment, it creates another hydraulic barrier to trap any pollutants. And then we have the third protection, which is to protect the outlet with another riprap filter berm. And anything that may have passed through those other stages would again have to pass through a filter berm before going through the outlet and discharging.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Tulin?
Yeah, hi. I don't have any questions, just a statement, and this may or may not be a helpful statement, but just a comment of, this is a big project with a lot of work and a lot of, presumably a lot of conditions, and just a note of appreciation on the part of the applicant's willingness to, agree to some of the comments that have been made by staff. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
And I do not have any other questions for the applicant. They did a great job at addressing concerns from our last meeting and confirm that all of the remaining outstanding staff comments can be acceptable as a condition of approval. So with that, I will go to the commission and see if there's anyone. We have 5 recommendations on a potential motion. Recommendations being to resolve all the outstanding engineering comments, and that would include Shannon Rutherford's comments from today, that a conservation easement as discussed and modified for straight lines versus the arcs, and installation of markers. The third item would be including integrated pest management for lawn and landscaping maintenance. Fourth would be using straw wattles instead of hay bales. And the fifth, as discussed, raised by Commissioner Fox and discussed, was adding a notation to the plan to limit the duration of the trench line for the sewer extension by the wetland crossing. So those would be 5 potential conditions of approval if someone wanted to make a motion.
I'll make that motion. I just wanted to clarify that we're only doing the conservation easement at the 100-foot offset from the wetlands, and I don't think we needed one on the, I know there's going to be an easement to the homeowners association on the borders with the property, but because there's no wetland there, I didn't see a need to have a conservation easement along the side property or along the other property lines. Does everybody feel that way, or?
Yeah, that was the way I heard the discussion, was the conservation easement would only apply to the 5.1 acre open space area, and the 1.1 acre open space area is not subject to the conservation easement.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Jay, second. Oh, sorry.
Got it, Jay.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've been able to pull up a copy of the agenda, so we'll move on to item 2, which is 10110 LLC, 281 Farmington Avenue.
I believe we have Jim Cassidy on the phone.
Yes. For the record, my name is Jim Cassidy with the engineering firm of Halsey, Pearson and Cassidy. Before you last month, we presented our application for the proposed improvement to the existing property at 281 Farmington Avenue. This application was for the creation of an outdoor seating and patio area. On the plan is up before you. We're looking at adding, where the hand is now, this brick paver patio area. There's a seat wall along the easterly side where the hand is now, wraps all the way around and back into the building. The red line that you see on the plan is the limits of the 150-foot upland review area from the wetlands that are just off the site that you can't see on this sheet. To develop this patio, we need to receive a permit to conduct the regulated activity within that red line. There's two parts. The first part is for the creation of the patio itself. That's regulated activity number 2. Has an area of about 219 square feet. That portion is a small area of an existing landscape piling that would be removed. The patio, the seat wall, and the set of steps you see on the plan there would be constructed in that area. The second part is as incorporated into this patio. There's going to be a trench drain to collect the runoff that collects on that patio. That trench drain has to be connected to the existing drainage system. So the gray area you see within the red line is the area of a trench to run a 6-inch PVC pipe from the trench drain to the existing catch basin. So that is our regulated activity number 1. That area consists of about 366 square feet. As I mentioned before, I saw this actually as being an improvement, about 6 parking spaces along the west side of this patio that are presently being removed as part of this application. So technically you're taking an area of what we call dirty pavement, areas of car sit, eliminating that pavement, and then you're putting in a patio that wouldn't be maintained during the winter, so you don't have any salts and sands, things that could potentially run off and go eventually into the wetlands. So it's actually, overall, it would be a reduction of parking areas and that type of pavement. So with that, I'm just going to be brief tonight and hopefully answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. We'll check with the commission members for comments, starting with Commissioner Berlandy.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
Nope, no questions or comments.
Commissioner Simpson?
Not here.
I should remember that. Thank you, Shannon.
No
Commissioner
problem.
Stetson?
No, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Tulin?
No questions.
I also do not have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy, for the presentation. We have we actually have one suggested item for consideration should we move to approve, and that would be to improve the erosion control at the catch basin. There are no other items to discuss. So is there a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion to approve the application with the recommended erosion control put in place.
Is there a second?
Dave, a second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you.
Move on to new business item 3, 1179 Farmington Avenue, update on the show cause hearing.
Yep, and I don't think I had told them they didn't need to call in. We're just confirming. I don't have, there's no attorney. So it's just me giving you an update. So you'll recall at the last meeting, the commission agreed to revise the enforcement order and lift the cease and desist to allow for the implementation of the restoration and creation plan with all the restrictions and things that were talked about at the last meeting. So this is simply the letter that authorizes them to do that work that we discussed. We then, I want to say, oh, I know where it is. I didn't open it yet. Bruce and I were out for a pre-construction meeting last Thursday, sorry. And so we've started basically a running log. There was myself and Bruce, there was George Logan and his colleague Sigrun Godwa. Stanley was there in one of his project managers and surveyors, Steve Conde, was there. So at the time, Steve had the wetland edge where we had to excavate out was delineated, the slope to be staked, the 8-to-1 slope was staked, the access area, the access road was all staked, and the creation area was all staked. And I can forward these notes to you folks so that you have them. I'm not going to read them to you, but everything looked to be in good shape. There were a logical order for procession through this. So it was a good kickoff meeting at the property. Erosion controls have been stabilized, and we talked about additional erosion controls that were going to be needed prior to them starting the excavation adjacent to wetland A. I was out on Monday on the 17th and spoke with Steve. The work was in progress. We've got some drone photos that Steve sent today that show work from Tuesday and today. So I'll share those next. And Bruce stopped out today. So what we're going to try to do from a staff level is either Bruce or I'll stop out every day. George and or Sigrun are on the property daily for about an hour-ish, making sure the staff has clear direction. We have shared cell phone numbers, so we are all easily attainable, and everything's progressing. And I have been providing updates to Ed Pollock, and he's provided some comments. I'll share those in a moment. So pictures being worth 1,000 words. Here's some drone photos that were sent today. So this is the far western edge. These are the concrete barriers. You'll recall we discussed allowing Mr. Mirzajewski to get these in place so that his normal operation activities to the west of these barriers could continue. And then this is the restoration. This is the upland restoration that you're seeing to the east. George and Sigrun on day one, they did a stakeout, and they actually have, so this is the main restoration here that's adjacent to wetland A, and they've created 3 control groups. This is the access road. So these are 3 control areas that they wanted to try. So this restoration area, the upland area, will have all the soil amendments and all the plantings and seeding done. And then again, there's a memo, and George's memo came in today, and I apologize, I just did not have a chance to read it because this was new. So when I was there on Monday, this was new to do these control groups. You'll see Ed thinks it's a good idea. There's no harm in it. If it doesn't work, then we just, whichever one, if this is the main area is working better, one of these, then we just implement these practices on the rest of it. So there's really no harm in it, and provides kind of an interesting study case for us since we have such a large area to work with. You will see that this area has been York raked, that it was starting to, given that we are almost to the end of May, mid-May, was starting to germinate with some good stuff, but mostly bad stuff. We had a lot of knotweed in there and mugwort, a lot of different invasives. So the thought was to York rake it, get as much of the material out and piled. And you can see as we go through the photos, you'll see these are some piles here, but there's a larger pile. It's going to be stockpiled and tarped. And then if, hopefully the knotweed will die off under the tarping. So this is just continuing. You can see him, there he is flying the drone and capturing the photos. There's the larger stockpile. This is the northern lobe of wetland B that is protected. You can see the silt fence. This is continuing, heading east. This is wetland B and the silt fence in place. So the York raked all this area to the south, and they haven't done any of the area to the north of the access road yet. I think too, this is still, we're still in some of the berm at this point. Yeah, you can see, so that berm was left undisturbed, and you can see the berm, the cut edge, our access road, and the silt fence. And then you can also see the straw wattle that's here at the edge of where the wetland A, the relatively undisturbed edge of wetland A. There's a few areas they're going to have to go in and hand remove some soil that had sloughed off prior to the installation of the silt fence. But you've got the straw wattle here. This is wetland A here, and then this is the area of inundation to the east that we've seen some amphibian activity. So we've had we've got tadpoles in there now. I can't remember. I think they're toad tadpoles. So that was yesterday's set of photos. So you can see this material's been all starting to be pulled back. All the any knotweed that was germinating in here along the edge, which was definitely taller than the knotweed out here because it was wet. You can see the difference in the soil. It's definitely wetter along that edge, and there's standing water in that wetland area. Varies about 6 inches. I say 6 to 10 inches of standing water in there. These are photos from today, and we believe these are after Bruce had already been to the property. So it's still the same control areas. And they intend to, whether or not it's daily, but on a regular basis, do these photos so that we've got comparison and can come through. So, and again, all this information's been shared with Ed Pollack as well. But these photos are really nice and are, you know, you're not seeing the minute details, but it's giving a nice broad overview. I had responded to these photos, and I had a couple of questions regarding the piles of material along the edge, confirming if the material is pulled back into the knotweed get separated out, and where the rest of the material had been dispersed. And I think George has an answer in here somewhere. Again, it came in at the end and as I was coming back in and trying to get stuff done for 867, but I'll get these emailed out to you. He has discussed a little bit about the berm. There's that soil where the straw wattle is, you know, we talked about there's material to be hand removed. He's saying there'll be a low berm. I didn't agree with it, and surprisingly, Ed, you know, no surprise, Ed does not either. So there's a couple of things. He does note the inundation in wetland A, and where he's noting various amphibian activity in our wetland A and B areas. But really it's, there's one frog he saw over in wetland A, and B, there's some tadpoles and a frog. So not nearly as much activity as we had seen last year with respect to tadpoles. This is his discussion, his and Sigrid's discussion regarding the 3 control areas. Again, I haven't read this yet, so I'll forward this to you folks so that you have it and can read it. Again, it went to Ed. And then Ed's response regarding, you know, again, no objection to having the test areas or the control areas, is not in favor of the berm separating the restoration area from wetland A, and I would agree that should get removed. And then, you know, he's questioning the flooded area. So when we come back to these photos, this area in the back, which is protected. So we've got the straw wattle, and then they've wrapped the silt fences all around. The aerial photos deceiving in the angle. There's a good, say 20-ish, 20, 30 feet and it doesn't flow that way. Everything flows this way. So that area is protected, and this access road coming through is already staked out and is going to loop well around in at least 90 feet. There's like a 90-foot radius around the eastern edge of this pond that this access road comes around and then comes into this bottom area of wetland A to tie in where the mitigation or creation area is going to be. So that is well protected at this point. And what you're seeing really are, sorry, is this, yeah, Ed's comments that he doesn't think that that should be, that it should be filled and it should remain basically part of wetland A, granted in perpetuity, but I think that can still be evaluated as we continue to move forward. I would agree, he's recommending that REMA flag it and that we get this on a survey, and that I would agree with at this particular point. So I'll provide that direction back to Stanley and his team. So that's what I've got for an update. If anyone has any questions or does not agree with something, then let me know.
Great, thank you, Shannon. That was a very comprehensive overview, and the drone photos were pretty impressive and very helpful. I'll open it up to anyone on the commission, not necessarily alphabetically. Anyone have questions for Shannon?
This is Ned. I had a question on actually this photo right here. Up near the top of the corner where was some of the steep drop offs. Are they getting soil out? Yeah, right where your hand is. Yeah, right here. Did that come out farther, and is that where they're getting some of the soil to balance this out, or?
No, so
No,
this is being left because the swallows have returned. So all the barn swallows, they're not barn swallows, but whatever, they're all in and out. The Swallow Hotel is open, and there are hundreds of birds in and out. So that's not going to get touched until this fall, once everyone has vacated for the season. And then I do believe Mr. Mierzewski's intent is to start to knock that down. It is, I'd have to pull up other mapping, I believe it's outside the 150-foot review area. There might be a fringe here on this edge, but I want to say the 150-foot line is roughly where the access road is at the moment. But no, this isn't being touched. So what you're seeing here that looks like fresh soil is just from the York rake and trying to pull up all the weeds and creating this pile of material. So there's a lot of knotweed and all the other vegetation that we did not want, and try to minimize that propagation, because we want to try to give the new seed as much of a chance as possible. So the York raking is allowing that. And then on site, there is some topsoil that's going to have to get placed in and mixed into here because there's not enough organics in the base soil, as well as other additives that go in when they hydroseed. But Stanley has, so off the edge of this photo, about 100 feet or so, there's a stockpile of topsoil. So it's that topsoil that will come into this area. And I've got to read in more detail George's responses, because these piles, I believe, are all the material that's been pulled back here. And then you look in this photo and they're gone. And so this is today. So I was just trying to get a handle, and it's probably good, very nutrient rich topsoil that he's stockpiled, I'm assuming back around and just off to the west, to the southwest, out of the construction area, the restoration area.
Okay. Yeah, I just noticed during our field visit that, that's such a steep drop off, and that's, well, it's not our purview, but it's a safety thing, because that's not that far from the cul-de-sac at the end of the church project. So, you know, and I know nobody's supposed to be in there, but we all know that kids go places they're not supposed to go. And I just, that really steep drop off on that area made me a little nervous. So I wanted to see by the end of the project if that gets knocked down a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. At one point, we had talked about putting construction fence up, and I'd have to look. There might be some orange fencing or something back here off the back edge.
Right.
I honestly don't. I know he's brought it up a couple of times, and certainly when we've been out there on a variety of occasions, there was certainly evidence of ATV tracks through here. So there's people that are coming in unauthorized and using that area. So with the barriers, so the intent of the barriers, and there's the gap in the barriers, right, to let the equipment through, but then there's a chain and so there's a chain and padlock to rope that off. So you're not going to get an ATV through here. You might get a mini bike through, but you're not getting ATVs through these, and you're not moving them without equipment. And this is like I said, that's chained and padlocked.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Any other commission members that have questions?
Member attendee.
This is Jay. This isn't really can you hear me? I'm not sure if I unmuted myself. I just
Yes,
want to
we
make
hear
sure.
you, Jay.
Okay. This isn't really a question, and I think I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do we need to take any action on that? We already lifted the cease and desist. We don't need to take any further action.
No, there's no more action. I'm just providing updates because this is going to go very quickly. The intent is to have this all done in 4 weeks. Basically, he wants this done because they've got to get the plants in the ground. They've got to get seeding done. Mr. Mirzajewski thankfully has access to water trucks, so he'll be watering, this area. The planting in the wetland in the creation area. The intent is to get into the water table for a portion of it for those pools, the pool areas. So no, there's no action. I'm just providing, and I'll do this again 2 weeks from now, provide an update. And by that point, we should have Ed involved. So you'll recall, we talked about having Ed out, when this is formed here and they're getting ready to plant and check the 2-to-1 slope. And then as they're coming around, and I want Ed to review the wetland creation area prior to planting. So we're going to have him out 2 or 3 times, but it didn't, to have him out there daily was a little much, I believe. So that's why we're here, we're down the street, but no, there's no action. It's just updates for the commission.
That's kind of what I thought. I mean, if there was an action to take, you probably would have said it on the agenda, but I just wanted to ask. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon.
Yes. And Mr. Chair, Mark Simpson has joined us.
Okay. Mark, any questions for Shannon about the ongoing restoration work at 1179 Farmington Ave?
No questions.
Okay, thanks. Unless there's any other questions, we will again thank Shannon for the oversight and the update and move on to planners' comments.
Okay, I do have a handful of things that shouldn't take too long here. This is winding trails. I've zoomed right in on you, but so Dunning Lake, the access drive. This is the playscape that's part of Dunning Lake. And they are looking, the playscape dates back to the 80s. So they are looking, and they're actually starting a funding program and they've got the design to redo the playscape and put all new playscape in, new equipment. And some of it is just bringing it up to current code and making sure that, from a risk management standpoint, that they're at code. They're, modernize the equipment like we've seen in many playgrounds around town. For those that still frequent them. But with that, with the playground, the footprint isn't changing. And the only thing that will be notably different is with these, the portions of the playground that provide climbing opportunities for children, there now has to be a surface under them for impact resistance. Concern obviously with concussions and broken arms and legs. So the sand is not, because it can be compacted fairly firmly, does not meet the requirements for the impact resistance. And they have spent a lot of time. This is probably, this impact resistance area has been the #1 main issue that they've had to try to overcome at this location. And they looked at rubberized surfaces, and the rubberized surface, because it's immediately adjacent to sand, it voids there's no warranties on any of these. So what they are doing is looking at installing an area of turf, so artificial turf, where the impact resistance is needed. So it won't be this full area, but where the impact resistance is needed, they are using artificial turf. I spoke with Scott Brown yesterday and asked questions regarding how, like our typical artificial turf, the turf material sits on top of the carpet, and you end up with the pellets, and everybody's sneakers, they end up everywhere. The rubberized pellets end up everywhere. Not to mention I'm aware there's also material, there's part of the impact resistance is the material, the sub-material to that carpeting. So Scott is going to do a little further research, because I said to him, I said, how are you? Because he's like, oh, we're just going to brush it off. You know, once a week we brush off the carpet. And I said, well, what about all the pellets? And I got a the conversation came to a dead stop. So he's got to look into that a little further. Because I said, look, not only do you have a concern of getting sand into your pellets and into your carpet, but then I've got a concern, if you're brushing this off, that those pellets are just getting into the sand, and eventually they're going to migrate down the beach and into the water. And they don't want that either, obviously. So at this point, it's a heads up. It is coming. My thought is, and I was curious really to get perhaps some initial feedback to the commission. If the footprint isn't changing, the thoughts on it needing to come in for a formal application with the commission. From water's edge, it's approximately 100 feet to the nearest point. So technically, midway through, we're in the upland review area to the water line. Understanding that fluctuates as well too. I could pull up a different aerial and it could be a different measurement by 10 feet or so. My biggest concern at the moment is making sure we get a solid answer to this, the carpet, the turf, and how that's going to be managed. They certainly have no objection for coming into a permit. I was just curious as to what the commission's thoughts were, if this rose to the level of wanting them to come for a permit or handle it administratively.
Shannon, thanks for prompting that question. And I imagine any excavation that's going to occur is going to be relatively shallow, and any material that they excavate is going to be brought on the upland side of the playground area. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, all work. And there's a break here. So there's a slope, the playground's at a level, and that's why I wanted to make sure that the footprint wasn't changing. So all work's going to be done to the north side, and it's at the top, the break for the beach doesn't happen. It's roughly in this area. It's a couple feet off of, I think this has the slide that comes down. So it's a couple feet off. It's about 10, 15 feet from the end of slide to where the beach breaks and slopes down towards the water edge.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly within the regulated area, because you said it's about 100 feet from the work area to the water's edge. It's replacement work at shallow excavation. I'd be comfortable just with staff review on the project. And I welcome input from the rest of the commission.
This is Ned. Having done a lot of Little League football, flag football on the high school field, that black dust gets into everything and it's all over. I'm curious to see, it never occurred to me, like, would that stuff in the water, would it float? Would it be like a film on the top of the water? I mean, I think they really have to give us some good answers. And if their final solution is to have some AstroTurf product that does have the, you know, the black pellets in there, then I would want this to be an application. If they
Agreed.
have a different solution without the black pellets, then it probably doesn't need to come before us.
I agree. Yeah. And with respect to the floating, we actually did a test here because we had, when we put the turf field in at Tungus Mead, there was the question that it's going to float all downstream. And interestingly, the static electricity with the turf keeps it floating initially, but as soon as you add any turbulence and the pebbles get coated in water, they sink.
Oh.
So yeah, their own energy keeps them floating, but so in this instance, they ultimately, you might have a handful that float, but ultimately they would sink and get mixed in. It would, yeah. So, and it would track all down the beach, like it just, and again, they don't want that. So, and Scott clearly that he did not have the answer for how that system gets layered. So, so I agree. If it is going to be turf with pebbles on top, then my recommendation of it being not to be administrative goes out the window. I don't agree with that, and they would definitely need to come and chat with you.
Okay.
Rich, what are your
Can I
thoughts?
ask? I don't know. Are you planning on going in order, Robert, alphabetically?
No, go ahead. We'll go in reverse order now, Jay. You're first.
Sorry, I wasn't looking to do that, but I just figured I would chime in. I just want to make sure I get this, what we're talking about, the administrative review. So, because it doesn't necessarily have to come before us, regardless of the distance to the water's edge. But the administrative review, there would still be these questions would still need to be answered, and if they're answered successfully, then we wouldn't necessarily need to have a permit, an application for a permit. Am I getting that right?
Right. Basically, you're permitting it as an as-of-right or a non-regulated use as a recreational use within the
it's an as-of-right thing.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
more.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Shannon. I guess I wasn't sure. That's what I was thinking. Is something like this possibly an as-of-right? And you just answered that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It doesn't neatly fall into these categories for us. So that's why I thought I'd share and get the conversation started.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure if the as-of-right designation was just, in my couple of years on the commission, that's always been residential projects, and this isn't a residential project, so I didn't know, with not having guidelines in front of me, I wasn't sure. So that was what I was thinking, and now you answered my question. Thank you. That was it.
Which goes to my point that it doesn't neatly fall into a category for us.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's good. So you're all set, Jay?
Yes, I am.
Great. Ned, any other questions? I know you started the conversation.
No, no, I'm all set.
Okay, Dave?
Well, I'm all set. I agree with Ned. If black stuff can head towards the water, we should take a look at it.
Okay, Rich?
Yeah, I would not be look kindly on the crumbled rubber AstroTurf type of installation. I think there's a like a poured in place semi-solid surface that can be put down. It's not inexpensive.
No, and the issue is because of the proximity to the sand, they won't warranty it at all. There's no, so you're going to spend $400,000 for a surface that they won't warranty at all.
Yeah.
So that's why they've really been, so the other one, I know there's a turf product that uses cork. So I'll recommend that to them and see. So the cork at least is a little more environmentally friendly than the rubberized pellets.
Yeah, other than that, I don't have I think it can be handled administratively.
Okay, Shannon, thanks for bringing it to the commission's attention. I think you have the feedback you need, that you'll handle it as administrative review, and depending on the product to be used or the scope of work, you may bring it back before us.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you're continuing
Mark,
on with the planner's report.
I'm assuming. Mark, did you have anything? Sorry, Mr. Chair, 'cause Mark jumped back on, and I know he's not on your list.
Thanks.
No, I don't, I agree that the black pellets is not appropriate for that area. I don't understand why sand is not sufficient. I mean, man, I was a kid, we used to play on asphalt, so.
Well, I know, but it doesn't.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I wish them luck, but you know, soft sand is soft sand. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it had to do with how it compacts and meeting the impact concussion protocols. So unfortunately. So.
All right, no questions.
Well, Mark, sorry for skipping over you. And when you weren't on the phone, I kept calling your name and you didn't answer. So now I went right by you.
Well, you know, after that comment, I'm not going to talk anymore.
But I do apologize.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Shannon, on with the planner's report.
Yeah, one more. Clearbrook. Clearbrook is off. It's off here with Summers Bay. So we had the restoration project for the homeowner that had inadvertently cut back here. We had the full restoration plan from Ian Cole. Ian's been great about keeping it, and the homeowner, actually. If every homeowner that had an oops followed up like Adam Rivera, my life would be amazing. I don't know how else to put it. But between him and Ian, they have kept us up to date every step of the way. We met with him, Ian, and the rep from Giuliano Pools today. The pool is staked out. They have the plants in place. They had to do some replacements and substitutions. Those were all cleared with staff ahead of time. As you can imagine, like everything this season, they're having trouble getting planting material. So they made appropriate substitutions. They're placed appropriately. So the plants that prefer shade are to the rear of the property in shady area. The plants that prefer sun are up in this portion of the restoration area. This area was rocky, too rocky, so they made adjustments. Everything's appropriate. All the plants looked healthy. They had just been sourced. They looked in great condition. So they're going to get those in and get those planted. And then the excavation for the pool should start next week. So it's just a 2-second update for you on that. And then the final thing that I have for all of you is, let's see, today's May, right? So the June 2nd meeting, I will be here. Our next meeting, I will be here. The second meeting in June, I will not be here. Obviously, I don't know if there'll be any application information or not. Depending upon what comes in and what needs to be tended to, either Catherine and or Bruce will be in attendance in my place. We may need Bruce to provide an update on 1179, and we may have Ed Pollock on the phone. So we'll just have to see where that stands. But that is scheduled graduation evening, so I will be in the vicinity, but I will not be here. So, so just a heads up with respect to that, to let you know. And governor's orders, we are expecting that the executive order to allow remote meetings is going to continue through the end of June. Our zoning board of appeals has requested, we met Monday night, zoning board of appeals wants to meet in person for the June meeting. So at any point we can start back in person for those that want to come on in. We are working through some technology items with IT. So maybe I'll get in touch with Mr. Hannon and see, we could do the June 2nd meeting, presumably in person, if those are, if there's interest. I'm curious as to what the commission members' thoughts are with that. We will be in the council chambers. right now there's partitions up on the dais, but you can't open plans that way. So the thought would be the partitions would come down, and then you could wear a mask if you wanted to, because you certainly are you're going to be closer than 6 feet. There's differing, like I've lost track of when to mask and when not to mask anymore. And there's if you're vaccinated and if you're not vaccinated. But I'm not, I don't necessarily want to put people on the spot either with respect to their vaccination preferences. That's really not our purview here. So general thought, if you have thoughts about whether or not you'd like to come back in June, we may get to a point where it's not a choice, but at this point it sounds like June would be a choice, and perhaps light agendas and a nice opportunity to start to break us into whatever our new process is going to be. But I open it up to you to share your thoughts with me on that.
Okay, maybe we'll run through just the usual alphabetical list, and we'll start. Rich, any thoughts to share?
Well, I don't see any, objection to going back. I've been kind of enjoying doing it online, but I could go either way.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty comfortable here as well. I was wondering how's the ventilation system in the council chambers?
It's a standard, I'd say a standard office building ventilation. There are no, I don't believe the windows down there are operable and open. So I've never tried to open a window, but I don't believe there's a casement. I don't believe there are casement open windows.
Will the public, will they be required to wear masks?
At this point, given the governor is saying no masks, I don't know. We can require it. So like I said, I've got to see. I'm balancing your request with. So I don't know yet. How's that? I don't know if the public would be required.
I didn't expect a
Yeah.
solid answer on that. It's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll chime in. I'm comfortable returning for in-person meetings, and I'll follow whatever guidance is recommended. In terms of what might be coming out, it's my understanding that the governor will be issuing guidance for executive branch state agencies that will still have masking as a standard practice unless there is separation, but state agencies that are serving the public with public interface will still have a mask requirement. So the court system resuming jury trials will be wearing masks, and many state agency personnel will be wearing masks when interacting with the public. That's my understanding of what will be coming out, but
That's great. I appreciate the insight.
Of course, it will, when the governor's office, working closely with the team advising, when the new guidance is out, then it will be out. So but I'm happy to return in person, and we'll acquiesce to whatever guidance is out there. I'm comfortable without wearing a mask, but happy to wear a mask if that is the preference. Mark Simpson, I found you on the list.
Yep. Shannon, do they still have the desks or the work areas in the back of petitions in the town council room, or have they been removed?
No, I think all that was removed. So what we've got now is the standard, the council, where the council sits or the commission sits, the working table that was down below, and then chairs, but the chairs are obviously there's like a third or a quarter of the chairs in the room to what had normally been there.
I was just asking because the tax appeal commission I'm part of, we met in the spring using those desks. They seem to work well. I didn't know if they were still there. I guess if I would come back in that close proximity, I probably would do it, but I would probably wear a mask.
Okay.
But I don't think any way you can, if the governor says you don't have to wear a mask anymore, I don't think you have the right ability to tell somebody not to wear a mask if it was somebody in the public.
Yeah, I think it would be, it depends on the nuances of what he comes out with, correct?
Yeah.
So if we end up under the same directives that he is for state agencies when you're interacting with the public, then we can mandate the mask wearing, which might help alleviate a lot of some of the uncertainty with this.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see if it can be made, you know, people wear masks, especially being indoors like that. But
Right. Well, and we can, if this is what we start to hear from all the land use commissions too, we can mandate. I mean, just because the governor says you don't have to wear a mask, I know he's even saying that with the retailers and the restaurants. You've got to follow the retailer and restaurant. He's saying no mask if you're outside and you're comfortable, but if the retailer, if you're walking through the door and the retailer restaurant's telling you got to have a mask on, then you got to have a mask on. So,
yeah. All right, we'll play it by ear.
Yep.
That's
Ed,
all.
what are your thoughts?
Well, just to make everything murky, at Connecticut DOT, they're telling us we're going to go at least 50% hybrid on July 1st. You know, with and alternating between teleworking from home and working in the office. But they are still saying that if you're in the office, they're going to want you masks. So, you know, I don't have, I'm vaccinated. I don't have a problem coming into the chambers for the meeting. And I would, you know, do whatever made people feel comfortable. You know, I understand there's a lot of people that still, you know, want to wear masks in certain situations just because it makes them feel more comfortable. And I fully understand that. So I would be there, and I'd either wear a mask or not wear a mask, depending on what people's thoughts were.
Okay.
Hey, and Jay, your thoughts, please.
I'm hoping and assuming we're going to have a choice. I don't really have any problem coming in. I have every intention to, regardless of what Governor Lamont says, it's my intention to continue wearing masks for a while for a number of reasons. So, you know, hopefully we're going to be able to do that, you know, kind of regardless. But I mean, I'm kind of happy being here. It's a little bit of a pain to have to call in all the time since my microphone doesn't work. But as long as I'm able to wear a mask in public, I have no problem doing that.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate the feedback. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so if that closes out the planner's report, we'll move on to approval of the minutes for May. I'm sorry, Shannon, was that it?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Okay, then we'll move to approval of minutes for May 5th, 2021. So any comments on the minutes or a motion to approve?
This is Ned. I'll approve. I noticed one of them had a misspelling on the top of wetlands. It was missing the D. I don't remember if it was the
Okay.
one of them. I don't remember which one, but I remember seeing one of them was missing the D.
Okay.
But with as revised, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second.
Sandy, did you get that?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. With that said, we will adjourn the wetlands meeting at 8:16 and open the Conservation Commission meeting at 8:16. First item of business, and Shannon will just roll over the roll call from wetlands. Is that okay?
Yes, I agree.
All right. Other business, land acquisition committee report. Is there one because the May meeting was canceled?
I don't believe so. Ned, do you have anything? Been
No.
quiet?
No, we haven't got any emails or anything. Just that the meetings were canceled.
Right. Okay. And then the only other thing I have from household hazardous waste, I want to say we had a mattress count that came in and we were up at 480, not from household hazardous waste, excuse me, the bulk waste collection. But 480 mattresses that were collected. And again, It's great because it keeps it out of the landfill. So it's a great program that's been initiated and rather seamless as well. So, and then we're still waiting on the rest of the household hazardous waste numbers. So I think I reported the shredding at the last meeting and the electronic waste, the e-waste. We're still waiting on the other numbers to come in, and I'll get those shared when they're in. But I don't have anything else under a conservation commission standpoint.
I have a question.
Yes.
The pink bags for the material recycling, are you supposed to put that on top of your blue barrel or
No, next to it?
Yeah, okay.
Next to it, so it's visible, because what happens is our recycling drivers, so the recycling drivers are fitted, the trucks is fitted with a iPad with a tracking device. So when he or she sees a pink bag, they toggle the device to say there's a pink bag at a given location. And so it then sends GPS coordinates, and when they are done their route, because they're normally finished by say 10 or 11-ish in the morning, they do there's a direct download to Simple Recycling. They get the list, and then that sets them on their path through the town of Farmington for a given day, so that they're not necessarily, because like in my school, there's not necessarily the Simple Recycling every time. It's just every so often. So this kind of streamlines the Simple Recycling driving through the municipality. So you don't want it on top, because then when he lifts it, it's going to end up in it's not going to help, because they come through with your recycling before the Simple Recycling comes through.
Yeah, because I put it down on the side, on the side of the thing, and it never got taken. But I'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Okay. And occasionally there's a hiccup, so that's not unheard of. So if there's an issue, I can also, if you like, let them know, and as they're coming through, they can just pick it up on another day, but you'd have to leave it out. So why don't you try it 2 weeks from now? If it's a problem again, then let me know and we'll get it rectified.
Okay, thank you.
So this
there
is
is
Rich.
the option. You can go on the Simple Recycling website and report a missed pickup. They also have a website feature, or if they forget to leave you bags, you can report it directly on their website.
Yeah. There's a website and an 800 number, correct? Yeah.
Before we adjourn, can I say something, or now I know we still have to consider the minutes from the 5th, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I want to just acknowledge something.
Sure.
I think I heard this correctly. I believe town council appointed Rich to fill Guy's position on the commission. So I just want to congratulate Rich on that appointment.
Yes, thank you very much, Jay. Yes, that is correct. So.
Well, thank you.
Way to go, Rich.
I got sworn in, and my term expires in September. So.
And did you get the letter about the pay increase going from alternate to full commissioner?
Yeah.
Well, that was why I wanted to do it, but you know.
All I can say is try not to let the power go to your head.
That was it. I just wanted to acknowledge Rich's appointment. You know.
Thank you for doing that. Rich, did you? Go ahead, Jen.
I'm sorry, just one other thing real quick. There's a Kakiwick, there's an email that came out from Kakiwick that Jay and I were talking about at the top of the meeting. I'll get it emailed out to everyone. If anyone wants to go, let me know, and I'll see if it's something that I'll have to check town budgets and whatnot if we can cover it. I'm assuming we can. I'm assuming it's reduced fee because it's online, but I'll get it out to everyone, and if there's any interest, then I'll figure out how to get it paid.
Thank you, Shannon. And Rich, did you have a comment when we were talking about the Simple Recycling?
No, I just had used the website when they missed a pickup on, just like you were saying.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think that brings us to approval of the May 5th minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second Dave.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unless there's anything, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just said wonderful. That's all. You're good. Sorry.
And with that, we will adjourn at 8:22.